Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Susie and today I will be trying the Lasso shortbread cookies recipe. So I went ahead and I did a search and I found a recipe which I will be trying out today. And I was able to get these cookies. So if you want to see how they turned out, go ahead and watch the video through the end. So let's go ahead and get baking. For this recipe, we need 4 simple ingredients that I bet you have in your kitchen right now. You need salt, all-purpose flour, powdered sugar, and butter. You want to go ahead and transfer your softened butter into a mixing bowl. Now we're going to go ahead and cream the butter for about 3 to 5 minutes or until it's soft and fluffy. After whipping the butter, we're going to gradually add our powdered sugar into the butter. So the reason why we're using powdered sugar is because this dough doesn't have any liquid. It's just the butter, the flour, and the sugar. If you use granulated sugar, it's just going to be a lot for the sugar to melt, but we're going to take care of that by using powdered sugar. Just going to give everything a very good mix, just to make sure any sugar that wasn't mixed by the mixer is mixed into the butter. The recipe said to sift the flour and the salt together in a separate bowl, but just because I don't like to wash that many dishes, I figured I could skip that step and just go ahead and sift the flour and the salt right into the dough. So I'm going to put my flour. Most commercial flours, you don't have to sift the flour because they do that for you already, but I'm just trying to follow the process just so if it goes wrong, I can't say it's because I didn't follow the process right. And I have a little bit of salt in here. I'm just going to go ahead and toss it in. It also doesn't say if you should mix the dough with the stand mixer or with your electric mixer. So I'm just going to go ahead and mix it by hand. And one thing I noticed is it doesn't have any vanilla extract, which I was definitely going to add some vanilla extract, but my boyfriend always says to follow the recipe the right time, the first time, and then you can figure out what to add afterwards. So I'm going to follow his advice. It's also very softer than other shortbread recipes that I have tried. I actually have my own recipe I created. That is definitely could be improved, but I will leave that in the, I'll put it up in the card somewhere and I'll put it in the description box. So I think that's enough mixing. Now we're going to go ahead and transfer our dough into our baking pan. Also going to plug this so I don't accidentally turn it on and just have a mess on my hands. All right, the parchment isn't really helping, so I'm going to go ahead and actually take it off the parchment, but we're just going to work with what we have, and I'm just going to leave it like that for now, and I'm going to pop it in the fridge for at least 30 minutes, and we can like reshape it before we bake. So far I don't have high hopes, but we'll see. I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap and pop it in the fridge, and I'll be back right before I'm about to bake the cookies. All right, so I've had the dough in the fridge for, I want to say almost 3 hours, just because I was running around. The dough was fairly stiff when I took it out of the freezer. I kind of had been pressing into the dough just to get its, to get how soft it was, so I can know when it's ready for me to form it right before I bake it. So I also have preheated my oven to 300 degrees F. Now I'm going to go ahead and try to get the dough nice and even, just an even top. Still kind of hard. If you keep it in the fridge for 30 minutes as suggested, maybe you wouldn't have to, you would have to skip this step, or maybe you can put it in the fridge for 5 minutes and then come back and shape it so it's a little firm at that point, and then you don't have to do this manual hard work that I'm doing. So what I want is an even layer so it bakes evenly, because if some pieces are taller, then I won't get an even bake. So shortbread has a lot of butter. That's why we're baking it at a very low temperature, because we don't want to like quickly melt the butter, right? We just want it to slowly melt and cook and bake together to give us that signature, you know, airy, crumbly texture that shortbread has. So I think that's pretty even. I'm kind of wondering if I should pop this in the fridge for a little bit before I bake it, because the butter, especially the edges, seem pretty warm, but we'll see. Another thing is the recipe said you should cut it up into squares, but shortbread, I mean, you could technically like cut it into any shape you want, of course, but I remember like when I think of shortbread, they're in rectangles. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it up into rectangles. It also said to cut it up, like cut it up into squares. But I'm going to score more than cut. So that just means I'm going to cut into the dough, but not through. So scoring is just like making a cut into the dough, but not through the dough. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use some geometry to get even pieces. So I think we're going to have like that. Yeah, the dough on the edges are pretty soft. So I think I'm gonna pop it in the fridge for about 10 minutes before baking. Oh, I should cut that into 3 instead of 4, but that works. I was too busy talking and not paying attention to what I was doing. Another thing is, usually you poke holes into shortbread cookies, but the recipe said not to, or it didn't tell you to. So like I said, I'm going to follow the recipe how it was suggested the first time, and then if I make this recipe in the future, I'll make a few tweaks. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this in the fridge for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to bake for 35 to 40 minutes at 300 degrees F, and I'll be back. All right, so I just took the cookies out of the oven. I actually let it bake for almost an hour, just because at the 40-minute mark, it was still very pale. The recipe also suggests that you bake for 45 to 65 minutes. Another thing about the recipe is it's said to cut out the cookies after it cools down, but I actually like doing this when it's warm because it's just easier. And if you can, just go ahead and trace the line. If you try to make new lines, it will make them a little messy. I'm also being careful not to scratch my pan. And this is where the parchment paper would have come in really handy, but I just couldn't figure out how to make it all work. Now I'm going to transfer the cookies onto a cooling tray so they can start cooling down. Again, having the parchment paper would have been awesome, but this is where we're at. I'm just going to work with what I have. Oops. Shortbread cookies are very messy, so there's going to be crumbs everywhere. That is not a bad sign. That is just the butter. It's just how flaky the biscuits are. All right, so I'm going to let these cool for a few minutes, and then I'll be back for the taste test. All right, the cookies I believe are cool enough for me to go ahead and try one. It's not fully cool, which I'll leave that up to you guys, but it is not as hot. It's just maybe a little warm. So let's go ahead. Literally melts in your mouth. And I can see why you want to eat them when they're fully cool, because I feel like the warmth of the cookies are kind of like preventing you from getting its full potential. So I believe they're actually going to be even better when they're fully cooled down. But oh my goodness, it's flaky, it's delicious. I would add maybe just a little bit more salt. just to bring out the flavors a little bit more. I don't know about vanilla extract. I feel like you can't really tell it's missing that. That's really good. Well, there you have it. I believe this recipe is very good. I think the combination of keeping the ingredients very simple, as well as placing the dough in the fridge for at least 30 minutes, gives the butter time to firm up. And then also, if you cook it at a very low temperature at the 300 degrees F, it gives the, I was about gonna say biscuits. It gives the cookies time to actually like do what it's supposed to do without rushing, so the butter doesn't just melt. It like slowly cooks through, and the texture, it's really amazing. Yeah, they're just really good. Hope you guys try out this recipe. If you have tried it out already, because I know Ted Lasso is not a new show, I'm sure a ton of you have tried baking it before. Let me know how it turned out. If you use a different recipe, you can share that with me and I can try it out as well. But I would say these are freaking amazing, and this might be my new recipe for shortbread. I have another recipe I want to try, but I think this will be my go-to recipe. Like I said, I might add just like a little bit more salt. It might help bring out the flavor just a little bit more. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.